Custom ROMs are ever so exciting. Everyone loves new phone stuff, especially the ones that aim to take you away from the mobile big tech duopoly. And that's what IodeOS is trying to bring to the table.
Yes, people, I embarrassingly called it IodeOS the entire review without bothering to look up that it's actually pronounced IodeOS. But if you just pretend that I say Yoda, it actually is still the same review.
Today, let's take a look at IodeOS, an open source Android ROM, and what it's like to use, possible environmental points, how it is for privacy and security, and especially if it's even for you. IodeOS runs on a few devices with a selection that you can buy pre-flashed with the OS.
Important detail, you can only buy these phones in the EU and Switzerland, Norway, and the UK. But you can always flash IodeOS on any device that they support by yourself.
They sent me a Fairphone 4 to play with, which is just incredible, so thank you to their team for doing that. When you boot the phone, you'll have the initial setup, which is fairly straightforward. The only gotcha is this toggle, which enables or disables microG, which is an app compatibility layer that takes the place of Google's proprietary and pretty privacy-invading Play services. We'll talk a lot more about this later, but don't stress as you can turn this on and off after the fact. After setup, you'll end up on the home screen, which if people have ever used LineageOS or any other bare-bones ROM will feel very similar to that. More on Lineage later. The apps that come pre-installed are selectable, which is neat. I enabled them all for the sake of the review to get the whole Iode experience. Iode has its own browser, which for those who know me are going to know I have mixed feelings on this, which I'll cover more about later. Usability-wise, just strictly there, it's just Firefox's browser with added custom search engines and some disabled telemetry, and a low-quality icon that's very sadly noticeable. Alright, the fun stuff. Privacy and security. IodeOS is based on LineageOS, which is another ROM, though Iode is formally able to offer support for their Fairphone. LineageOS is de-Googled, which immediately makes it stronger for privacy when it comes to avoiding Google's invasive tracking that takes place via Google Play services.
I'm still gonna always recommend an Apple iDevice over like any Android device to most people in my life. It's just generally gonna be better for privacy and security for them, from what I've done and what I've researched. I'm not including custom ROMs in that, I'm just saying between those two.
To summarize environmental stuff, these are all valid. It's hard to debunk them necessarily, though I still stand by keeping your current device and only buying used/refurbished devices that are repairable and have a long length of software support being the best way to value the environment. So far, this gets a green check for me, though there is one mild pink flag to throw your way, which is the speediness of OS updates. For context, December 5th was when Google pushed out security updates for Android. It took about 3 days for LineageOS to implement those updates, which were pushed on the 8th. Then it took Iode another 8 days to push out their update, putting them about 11 days behind when Google pushed their security update. That was December, but I'm guessing most months there's still going to be a delay. For the average person, this isn't bad and doesn't really mark significant concern, but for those with higher threat models, IodeOS is officially still on Android 12, like Lineage with an Android 13 build in beta. While Android 12 is still getting security updates, there are privacy and security improvements in Android 13, and Android 13 has been out since August of 2022, and other ROMs have had support for Android 13 as early as September of 2022. So the fact we're in January 2023 and still running Android 12 means you're kind of missing out on any new privacy and security features in the newest major releases of Android.
Oh, you know what? You could bitch about anything, couldn't you?
To summarize environmental stuff, these are all valid. It's hard to debunk them necessarily, though I still stand by keeping your current device and only buying used/refurbished devices that are repairable and have a long length of software support being the best way to value the environment. Now, I did talk about the browser, so let's talk about the browser. Maintaining a browser, at least one with heavy modifications that actually makes it a useful tool, isn't an easy feat, especially when security updates are so important to a browser. On top of this, IodeOS browser doesn't really bring that much to the table. To outline here, it gives you the normal Firefox experience with less telemetry data collection from Mozilla and some extra search engine options. You can add those search engines yourself in a lot of instances, and there are other methods and apps that already full out remove the telemetry done by Firefox. Browsers are also an easy swap out, and I can't find many reasons to actually use the IodeOS browser over other options, especially when many of them offer the same pros as what IodeOS brings to the table, with actually a lot much better stuff going on. But hey, if you love the IodeOS browser for whatever reason, knock yourself out.
I am shocked! Shocked! Well, not that shocked.
MicroG is another consideration. MicroG is an open source implementation of Google Play services. Some of the features still send minimal data back to Google, which can all be configurable, or just all MicroG outright disabled. Though keep in mind that MicroG is what makes a lot of apps work, so if you disable features or straight up the entire thing, a lot of apps will kind of cease to work. There are some security concerns with MicroG, though none that I believe most end users should concern themselves with. And it offers a much more private and transparent way of engaging with Google services for an overall net improvement for most people's goals. Finally, there's the IodeOS app. The app is cool, and when combined with a VPN and maybe NextDNS, video on that config coming soon. The last thing I'll mention in the privacy and security realm is just general trust, which is totally subjective.